Hare Krishna, everyone. I go by the name of Archana Panya Sharma, and it's my utter honor that while I speak so much on the radio every morning on a show called Kasakai Mumbai, that I can introduce to the entire city a gentleman who has touched hearts across the country and around the globe and has given us some insights into our own cultural, mystique, magical, I think, core of what I feel our country kind of gives out to the world. And I cannot believe that I'm standing in front of him and doing this, because before I begin and introduce you to the wonderfully celebrated gentleman on the stage, I was actually told about Sri M by a very dear Jijaji who lives in Chandigarh. And his only wish for me was that I come in contact with this divine soul. And today to be speaking about you, Guruji, and introducing you, where I'm sure none of the people, the way they stood up for you, you don't need that introduction. But I think M stands for magic. I think M stands for me. And in you I see me, and that's what he preaches and teaches. If you've read his books, you would completely know in his journeys how his endeavor has been to bring that core with simplicity to each one of us. And if M for meditation is anything that will bring you that inner peace that we all look for, no matter how acclaimed, happy, rich, well-traveled, and all things that you consider wealth you have gained, and you still feel lost, then this morning is going to enrich all of us. Thank you, Sri M, for doing this for Mumbai and for all of us to bring this forth in a conversation with an equally mystical gentleman, because I just found out he is the reason we all happen to keep a spiritual connect in our everyday lives with something called the newspaper, which a lot of people have stopped subscribing to because it brings a lot of negativity. The speaking tree is your contribution to our richness. Thank you, Ranjit Hoskote, a cultural theorist, an independent curator and poet. And what's amazing about the fact that he's not just authored very many books, but he obviously brings art and culture from our country into simplicity in the way he writes about them. So there is that part of him that I think we always talk about, India being so rich as it is. And then there is this spiritual. He says it was a way as far as his home is concerned. So before we unveil the book today, I think this conversation is what I'm looking forward to, because for a man who actually writes prolifically about so many different various topics, I think meditation is something you and I would still consider a mystery. Over to you, Ranjit, and thank you so much for being here today with us.
Even though we live in the land of kalpas and yogas, it's nice to know what kind of time we have for a conversation of this nature. But 40, okay, brilliant, thank you. Shri M, it's really a privilege and a pleasure to be in conversation with you again. Now, we've done this before with your novel, Shunya, and now to be able to talk about your new book on meditation. I thought I might begin, if I may, by asking you about the literary forms that you've chosen. I mean, your first two books were cast as autobiographies. And when you've lived many lives and have recall of them, then an autobiography is a much more amplified kind of project. And then Shunya, the novel, was a form of fiction which traces the same ground but speaks possibly to a new audience. Why did you choose this format for On Meditation, where it's like a handbook, it's a series of talks and dialogues, it's in a venerable tradition? I think here, for instance, of someone who we both revere, Jiddu Krishnamurti, or in another tradition, Swami Niranjan of the Bihar School of Yoga. Was there a need to encapsulate things you've said to diverse audiences in diverse places? Could I draw you out on why you chose this form for the book and how it brings into play the questions and perplexities that audiences across the world have brought to you for clarification.
So, welcome to this morning, where we are likely to, well, we are going to discuss on meditation, but like Ranjit said, we need to look at various things before we go into this. And thank you, Ranjit, for again being with us here. Now, the question which he had put to me, I mean, with all his experience and background, it's a very relevant question. Why did you choose this format? I mean, other things, yeah. So, I wrote my autobiography because I had to do it at some point, and I couldn't carry it in my head and walk around for years without putting it down on paper. Apart from the fact that my master wanted me to write it at some point. So that was pretty much straightforward, you know. You sit down, you think, you find out what happened, and then you write. The second book, The Journey Continues, it's a crazy book because it's all about past life, which many people don't even believe in. But then I thought, let's do it. Let's finish with it. Then I came to this Shunya, which is a novel. Very funny. When I wrote my autobiography, not all, but some people started asking me if it was fiction. Somebody is playing a mridangam. Started asking me, is this fiction? Then I wrote Shunya, which is a novel, which the publishers have already put in big sentence, fiction. And then they asked me, is this real? When you write an autobiography, they ask you if it is fiction, and when you write fiction, they ask you, is this real? So I don't know how to answer. So I thought, let me now do something neutral, neither fiction nor non-fiction, factual things about meditation. Right. Mm-hmm. And this format is because from ancient times, as you mentioned, the technique of a dialogue is part of our culture, starting from the Upanishads down to the Gita. It's a samvad, it's a dialogue between two people, ask question, answer, and so on and so forth. As you mentioned also, Krishnamurti, he also believed that one should have a dialogue. Without a dialogue, you cannot find out what's going on, especially in this field. So I thought I should write something on meditation, because there are many complicated books on meditation. I wanted something very simple for you and me, which people can read and understand. And all the questions in this book are real questions. They're not manufactured. I didn't make them up. They're real questions. And they were asked to me at various talks in different parts of the world. In fact, when we first made the format, I had mentioned every chapter with the place where it was discussed, like Switzerland, US, India, and so on. I had mentioned all the places, but the editors insisted that it should be just question and answers, and one doesn't have to mention where it happened. So we took that out. So basically it's like a transcript of my discussions with people, which I look through to make sure that it is properly done. So this is the format we have. There's one more little reason. You know, whenever I go somewhere, people ask me questions. And suppose today I'm in Mumbai and we have a satsang or a talk, and you ask me a question. I go to Delhi and somebody else asks the same question. Then I go to Bangalore and someone asks me the same question. So I kind of got too fed up with answering the same question again and again. So now I can say, please look at the book. Not a selling point, please. Now you read the book. Many questions are already there. This is the third, not important, but important enough reason why I did it this way.
That's why I sort of characterize the book at some level in the best possible way as a handbook. But it also raises some questions about how people come to meditation or come to the need for meditation. As you said, of course, and in various fields we have the same problem of, so to speak, beginners or people with problems who come to you. And from your point of view, it's the same question and the same stage at which the questioner is. But there's always specific anxiety that is brought to the table. So my question with a book of this nature would be, to what extent can it impart a possibility that meditation is a technique? So it's a twofold question.
Right.
Is meditation a technique, or can this book draw people into a deeper sense of how it's really a responsibility to the self? It's a responsibility that you undertake towards inner transformation. So are you speaking to both possible audiences? Those who want it as a technique, or those who know that it's much more than a technique?
I think so. Because, there are different kind of people who want to know about meditation, different kinds of people. There are some who come and say, we are all stressed out and we need some help. What can we do? And there are some of my leftist friends in Kerala, from where I come. They come in, we are all stressed out, but we don't believe in God. Now what? I said, there are simple meditation techniques. You don't have to have any belief systems. Keep it away. You still can practice something daily. But the thing is, daily practice. Very important, because our minds fall into a pattern depending upon our style of life. You need to change the pattern a little bit, and this is possible only through daily practice. Like even ordinary things, if I start walking daily, then it becomes a habit, then I fall into that. And then I feel if I don't walk one day, it's terrible. In the same way, there are very simple ways of meditation by which you can free yourself of stress, and like mostly breathing techniques and being aware of the breath and so on. However, the word meditation in English covers a couple of things which in traditional yogic terms are different words are used to express them. Now, the most standard textbook that we have today for the practice of yoga, theory and practice of yoga, are the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the Ashtanga Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Now, it's called Ashtanga Yoga not because it's a brand, it's become a brand, but it's not because of that, because it has 8 angas, 8 parts, starting with yama, niyama, rules and regulations, which means you can practice meditation, but you need to also change your lifestyle a bit. That's what it means. Yama and niyama, rules and regulations. So this is 2. Then you have asanas. Now, asana need not necessarily mean that you should stand for an hour with your head down and legs up. People with high BP, it's a perfect recipe for death. You can get a brain hemorrhage. So it's not that. But asanas are devised to make your body good, fit, less fat also. And through that, with a healthy body, you influence a healthy mind. And from there you take off. Up to that, asanas can take you. And asanas also deal with your endocrine system. Like there are asanas which are specifically meant to massage your adrenal glands, for instance. And when you get angry, what happens? It's the adrenal gland that starts pumping adrenaline into the system. Right? So is there a way by which it can be brought under control? So this is asana. So we have now done yama, niyama, asana. Then there is pranayama. That is the science of People usually translate science of breath. It's not. It's a science of life energy. However, the life energy is intimately connected to your breath. So it is not shwasayama, means something to do with your shwasa, connected to pranayama, which is the energy. It's a general term used. So we have yama, niyama, asana, pranayama. Then pratyahara. Pratyahara is the technique, actually, the yogi learns of being able to switch on and switch off at a given time at short notice. This is very useful for even others, not only yogis, but so-called non-yogis, because you get obsessed with something, generally. So can you switch off? And then fix your attention somewhere else. This is pratyahara. Then comes what we call in English as meditation, which is 3 words: dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Dharana, dhyana, samadhi put together, we usually use the term meditation. So dharana is one-pointed attention. Now, this one-pointed attention is useful relieving stress. It's also useful in your daily life. If you learn how to be one-pointed, you can work wonders. Why we can't? Because your mind is always scattered. It is not one-pointed. So there are 2 advantages. What is the deeper advantage? It's only through one-pointed attention that one can eventually transcend the ordinary. Which is what you asked me about. Is it also for something? Yeah. So you come to a state where at a given moment you can pinpoint your attention on what you want. When this happens, then the mind becomes tranquil. It's not obsessed by anything. It's not running hither and thither. It's completely calm. We believe that it is first requirement for it to transcend the mind is tranquility of the mind. So that also applies in some way. Then what is dhyana? Usually the word dhyana is used to define meditation. Dhyana is the continuing of dharana for a length of time with no distraction. This is called dharana. And dharana. Then samadhi. Samadhi, now this is a very complex subject. Samadhi is a word used where if you define it in a simple way, it means the person who meditates, the person, what he is meditating upon or she is meditating upon. Now I'm very careful to use the word she, because 1 week back I went to the Management Institute in Calcutta, the premier management, and the subject was man's search for happiness. All the ladies objected. They said, please change this. I said, okay, human search for happiness. So from on I always add he or she and so on and carry on. So, no, I forgot what it is. Samadhi. So, samadhi therefore is the state where the meditator and what one is meditating upon and the whole process of meditation kind of merge without borders, and there is only meditation. This is, I'm talking from viewpoint of the practice of yoga as such, deeper meditation. Well, in the Upanishads and also Krishnamurti, J. Krishnamurti, approached it in a different style, in a philosophical manner. Instead of what we are talking about is dharana, dhyana and samadhi in yogic terms. He approached it in a different way. The Upanishads also approach it in a different. In fact, I sometimes think at some time I must write a book called The Upanishads and J. Krishnamurti. Whether he has read Upanishads or not, that's not the question. But it looks like there is a lot of reflection from there coming. What they are trying to say is that the meditator and the world are not 2 things, there's only one. When there is division, there is conflict, there's trouble. When there is no division, there is no conflict, in a different way. So, in this context, this book most of the questions are simple questions asked by people. When I meditate, people ask strange questions sometimes. When I meditate, can my toe be like this or like this? And so, simple question, but for some people it may be important. I've tried to answer that. And then I have also tried to answer, take it a little deeper and say that from here, this is like a tarmac from where you take off to the higher levels, which I have kind of barely hinted and not gone very deep into, because it's supposed to be a practical book.
It is a practical book, but there are aspects of our practical experience that are, as you're suggesting, also very closely linked to the transcendent. Following from what you just said about Krishnaji, his idea and also yours, that there are things in our everyday practice of life that produce division. There's conditioning, there's language, and there are passages in the book where you discuss these questions. So could I draw you out a little bit on this? Because it seems to me that many of us who lead regular non-yogic lives would want to reach out to these deeper levels of experience, but we are also wedded to the identities we've constructed for ourselves, which is the result of samskaras, of conditioning, of prejudices, of all kinds of knotting of energy. Now, how might meditation, undertaking meditation as more than a technique also means being willing to rid oneself of that conditioning. There's a beautiful passage where you talk about how your guru initiated you into the flame meditation. Where you look at the flame, close your eyes, and then focus on the image of the flame. It's a marvelous metaphor for burning away all that is negative in one. So, are you not inviting people when they meditate to also dismantle all the negative conditioning? Is that an overt part of your book, or is that something you're hinting at?
It's always interesting to have discussions with Ranjit, because it's like you're sitting in the Upanishadic age and having a discussion between a rishi and someone who's living. And now the thing is whether, I don't know, this is the rishi or this is difficult to say. But what I mean to say is he's done a lot of background. He understands many things. So thank you. So let me say this. First, starting with yoga. Since the book is on meditation, and usually people link yoga to meditation. Now, the definition of yoga, according to Patanjali, the various other books, the Nath Sampradaya from which I come from, have many other texts on yoga. The Pradipika, Hatha Pradipika, Garanda Samhita, Yoga Samhita. There are many. Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati, which is difficult to read, don't even attempt. So, but the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali are very simple, direct. But they are sutras. When you say sutra, it's an aphorism. It needs a commentary to open up. It needs a key to open up, because they're simple statements. So what is Patanjali's definition of yoga? Not only meditation, yoga. Yoga is citta vritti nirodha. Which means yoga is the elimination of the distractions of the mind. First step. Then only other things come. So, the invitation here through this book is to first start working on that. You would think of Krishnamurti, for instance, I would say is a man who had already done that. Yeah. So, but others have to do it, right? You, without mastering something, you cannot transcend it. Like you have shapeless clay in your hands. You want to make an image out of it. So you have a mold also. This mold is all the training that you go through. So you put the clay into the mold and you put both sides together, and when it is ready, how do you see the image? By leaving it in the mold or opening it? Yeah. So, but then you need the mold first. Right? So, the first attempt in this book is to mold the mind into a certain pattern, and then understand that finally the aim is to be free of all patterns. But you can't be free of all patterns unless you have brought it to a certain stream. Simply you can't, like somebody is an expert in Bharatanatyam dance, let's say. They work very hard. They learn for years and then they dance. And when you're an expert, then you innovate. If you don't know anything, what will you innovate? So, while this book also tries to explain the simple techniques of meditation, which will lead finally to Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Now, Nirodha is a word which one has to be very careful. Some people translate Nirodha as destroying or controlling the thought waves, Nirodha. But actually Nirodha, Sanskrit is a language which has so many meanings that people place one meaning on it and it continues for ages, Nirodha means elimination. Now that elimination need not be a kind of a violent process. It can also be a quiet process. So which means when the distractions of the mind, the conflicts, the distractions, when they are eliminated, then the mind becomes quiet and tranquil. That tranquility is also the state close to what the Gita calls sthita prajna. Consciousness or thought process becomes sthit, which means steady. But this is what the Upanishads are also trying to say in their own way. But what I'm trying to say, look at, let's take Krishnamurti. Now this can be controversial, let me say this. There was a time when he was trained by the Theosophists. And there is a book he wrote called 1,000 Lives of Alcyone, the Theosophical Society. Right, now he abandoned it afterwards, of course, because he didn't need it. What I'm trying to say is, it required a preparation after which he broke through. So, if you can take this book to help you up to the preparation of the mold and so on, I've given just little hints to say that finally the mold has to be broken. I've done it very carefully because otherwise people may take it completely wrong and say, oh, now I have understood, I don't have to do anything. Please, Krishnamurti himself practiced half an hour of yogasanas and pranayam every day. I've seen it myself. He didn't say, oh, I've touched it, now I don't need it. So I'm saying a certain amount of discipline is required, but then discipline is not everything. This I have hinted.
No, it's very true. I mean, anyone who's worked with music, for instance, knows that you have your sadhana or your riyaz, which whatever your high degree of competence or excellence, you still have to go through that because it's a self-refinement. But could I draw you out on another aspect of this book where you draw attention to how language is completely necessary, could unite us, but could also divide us. So someone who's immersed in the language arts, I am struck by this. And it also reminds me of Bhartrihari's remark that all things are shot through with words. There's nothing you can do about it. We are linguistic subjectivities. Our experience is something we approach and shape through language. But what kind of journey towards abstraction do we undertake when we start meditating? I mean, in one sense, one way of beginning a journey of meditation is also through the syllable, through the mantra, through the japa. How do we reach beyond the word then to these deeper levels of consciousness?
Right. This is a very elaborate subject, but let's try and look at it. We need language, there's no question about that. All the texts that we have today with us are there because there is language. This is very clear. Now I'm talking to you because I know English and I'm talking to you. Yeah, having said that, there are certain things which cannot be explained using language. I will go back to the Upanishad. There is this beautiful Kena Upanishad which comes from the Samaveda. For me, Samaveda is a very important Veda. You look how Vyasa wrote the Bhagavad Gita and wanting to show the importance of Samaveda. When Krishna declares his Mahima, he says, among the Vedas, I am the Samaveda, not Rigveda. Doesn't mean that you bring down the importance of, I hope there are no Rigvedis here. So, all our music starts with Samaveda in this country. I'm connecting to this. Music, Samaveda, Kena Upanishad, which is part of Samaveda, last part of it. And in Kena Upanishad, among the other things, other expressions used to define the Supreme, it says, Yad vajana abhyutitam, that which words cannot describe. Yad vajana abhyutitam yanavag abhyutyate, which is the source of all words, but which words cannot define. Tadeva brahmatvam vidvi, understand that is the Supreme Reality. Nedam yad idam upasate. Krishnamurti will be very happy to hear this. Nothing that you worship here. This is Kena Upanishad, Shruti. Okay. Now, what it is trying to say is that like deep emotions, for instance, cannot really be expressed through language. We try, but then that expression always falls short of what we actually experienced. So there is a limitation in language. Like I speak one language, you speak another language, while when you look at it as speaking different languages, we are divisive. You go to the Indian army, even though it's called Indian army, you'll have small caucuses of Malayalis and Madras regiments and Rajasthan regiments. It happens naturally because somebody speaks Malayalam in the train, I go and ask, oh, hello, how have you? So, while it's good to communicate, it also has its limiting potential. Yeah, and we are talking about something that is beyond the grasp of the ordinary mind, and the ordinary mind sustains itself on language. So this is what we are trying to say. We need language, of course, but we sometimes have to think. Okay, I sometimes give this example, it's very funny, but it's true. There are two young people standing in the bus stop. They're supposed to be in love with each other. Well, a biologist might say the hormones are rushing because they're young, but leave the explanation apart. There are two young people standing in the bus stand and looking at each other for a long time. You ask them, what are you doing? What are you looking at? The only explanation possible is kuch hota hai. Kya hota hai, you don't know. So even in a simple thing like this, if words cannot explain and you can only say kuch hota hai, then what about something that is beyond? Can words really define it? They can't. But to say this, I need words. We're not, you know what I mean? Scholars and people who deal with words are very important parts of our civilization, no question. But they eventually begin to understand that this is not the be-all and end-all of existence. There's something beyond. Even for that, you need words to explain. When the Upanishad says, it's using language, but says, well, this is not enough. One has to go beyond. So I've given some stories also of Nimrod and so on, about the Babel and so on. Tower of Babel.
No, thank you for that exposition, because it also reminds us of how much of this journey is in a traditional description, alekhya. It does not appear in the texts that you inherit. It has to be done through practice. So how much of that aspect, the alekhya, is available to people who lead the life of householders, or people who are in the everyday world? What kind of quest do you have to go on?
No, I'm a householder myself.
I'm thinking of your present life, but thinking of some of your previous lives when you've been other things.
Yeah. So I think somewhere this thing has been made to appear as if it's far away and everybody cannot do it and so on. My attempt is to break that mold, break that mindset. You can do it. I can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. So, of course, it's hard work, like anything else. But that we are living in this world. What about people who are sannyasins and you run huge organizations with, all the paraphernalia? Don't you think they also live in this world? Huh? They have to get angry to get people to do things. I mean, then there are quarrels among disciples of who's going to succeed. There's so much politics going on. I don't have a success. I'm just saying. So we still live in this world. Nobody is outside this world. You can change your robes, you can shave your head, you can wear rosaries or not, but you're still in this world. It's very important. So I'm saying, while still living in this world, it is possible for you and me to, one of the things my Guru, Maheshwarnath Babaji told me, he said, teach the Upanishads in simple language. Because myth has been spread that Upanishads not possible for everybody to understand. So it's a myth. It's very direct and it's very simple. It's as direct as saying, chant the name of the Lord. I mean, this is a different way, approach. But this is another approach, but it's very simple. It's not complicated. So I think that doesn't hold. That daily life, who is an ordinary man? Tell me. Everybody is extraordinary in some way. I don't accept the fact when people say, oh, we are ordinary. I said, please, you're not ordinary. There are hidden depths in every one of you. You could only tap it. They'll come out. That's why I don't like the name of this political party called Aam Aadmi. There are no Aam Aadmis. All are special.
Which might be a moment to... Would you take questions before we go to the launching of the book? Or, yeah? Is there a mic that can travel? Maybe we can do...
What is this? Archana can handle this in some way.
Do we have another mic?
No, we have mics.
We have, yeah.
And there seems to be a question there.
These lights are so bright.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. There is this thing about not doing anything nowadays, the new Advaitins. Seeking itself is a handicap, it comes in the way. And personally, I see the need for tremendous practice and preparation before one can reach the level of going beyond all the dualities as in Avadhuta Gita and just connect with the Absolute, which we always already are. So would you please elaborate on this?
It's not a question at all. I mean, it's a statement. I agree with you. Because I know, there's very quickly people say, oh, we don't have to do anything. But those who said we don't have to do anything have worked hard for so many years before they reached there and said, now I don't have to do. Let me explain this with a little. It's a good question, actually. It's a good question or statement, whatever. You know, in the Zen teachings, many people like to practice Zen. The other day I saw a young gentleman, he says, I'm not interested in our culture. He said, why? Because I'm now become a Zen Buddhist. I said, wonderful, great. In Malayalam there is a saying, Muttatte mulle ki manamilla. You know what it means? The jasmine in your own garden doesn't have a good perfume. Somebody else's garden smells nice. So I'm not against Zen. I mean, it's a wonderful teaching. Do you know that Zen was taken by Bodhidharma from India? He was from the south, from Tanjore somewhere. He took this particular kind of Buddhist teaching which laid a great stress on meditation. And meditation is dhyana. So he took this dhyana Buddhism to China, which in the Chinese language became Chan. Dhyan became Chan. And then in Japan it became Zen. So it went from Bodhidharma. Now, in the Zen practice, they also lay a lot of importance to archery. We have heroes in our old mythology. I'm sorry, not mythology. In our Puranas and Itihasas of people who hold the bow. Kodanda Rama. Kodanda is the bow. So the Zen have teachings on archery. Now, the Zen Master... Hello?
That may have been the Zen Master.
Go on.
That was interesting. Where did that sound come from? Anyway, so mysterious are the ways of life. I didn't do anything, huh? So, the master gives you a bow and an arrow, and you have a target there. Is it target or target? Huh? Target. So there's a target there. So then he teaches you how to aim the arrow at the target. So he says, put the arrow on the string. A bow has a string. Okay. Now pull it out. Fix your eyes, your view, the target, and the tip of the arrow in one line. Now pull the arrow tight. Okay. Now we're done. So now this is the preparation. Can you hit the target if you don't release? Okay, you have to pull it taut, no question.
And then let go.
If it is already loose, then you can't shoot, right? But once you have done it, then you have to release the fingers before it hits there. So that is the last part that comes. You can't start with that.
Yes, thank you so much. Just a little monopolizing here. How about, we are not the doers. So that makes it, I'm coming from Balsekarji, of course. And
We are not doers is a very easy thing to say, but difficult thing to practice in life.
right.
Usually when we do wonderful things, we like to think we are doers. When we fail, we say we are not the doers. Who knows what's happened? So we have to watch out on that a little bit.
Deepest pranam.
Thank you.
Do we have the next question?
You
At the back.
We have.
You want to ask Ranjit or me?
हेलो
Yeah.
मुझे ध्यान के बारे में पूछना है
क्या?
ध्यान के बारे में पूछना है द कंसेप्ट जो आपने बोली
Where are you sitting? Can I see you?
आई एम ऑन सेकंड फ्लोर बालकनी
Okay. क्या पूछना है आपको?
मुझे पूछना है कि ध्यान जो मैं एक बिगिनर हूँ इसलिए पूछ रही हूँ कि ध्यान जो है इच्छित कुछ अपना समझो देवता है या किसी को सामने रख के किया जाता है लेकिन ध्यान की अंतिम स्टेप जो आपने बोली कि निर्विकार निर्विकल्प निर्गुण की तरफ लेके जाना है तो हाउ टू अचीव दैट कहीं मैंने पढ़ा है निराकार होना ये भी एक आकार है निर्गुण भी एक गुण है तो मेरे जैसे बिगिनर के लिए ये बहुत कंफ्यूजिंग लगता है तो क्या आप मुझे थोड़ी मदद कर सकते हैं
कोशिश करूँगा.
जरूर
हाँ?
प्लीज
अच्छा. तो अंग्रेजी में कहूँ कि हिंदी में?
अंग्रेजी में चलेगा बट आई कैन नॉट एक्सप्रेस आई थिंक बेटर इन इंग्लिश दैट्स व्हाई आई टॉक इन हिंदी बट I think I can understand a little English.
ठीक है.
Okay, thank you.
Because if I speak Malayalam, you won't know. So it's like this. Because there are people who may do not know Hindi. Actually, everybody would know a little bit of Hindi. But अच्छा ऐसा है कि my suggestion is कि आप जहाँ आप हैं वहाँ से शुरू कीजिए इसको. शुरू करना सबसे प्रथम चीज है. डोंट वेट फॉर दैट निर्गुण एंड नॉट स्टार्ट एनीथिंग. सो आप वहाँ स्टार्ट कर लीजिए. इफ यू हैव नथिंग एल्स टू फिक्स योर अटेंशन ऑन योर ओन लिटिल ब्यूटिफुल ग्रैंडसन और whoever. The reason is, we human beings, we live by name and form. हम लोग सब नाम और रूप से जीते हैं. All of us. Every morning when we wake up in the morning, normally, what do? At the wash basin, we look at our image in the mirror, right? And see, oh, this hair has gone a little grey, this has gone blue. Isko pluck kare, nahi kare. Not me, I'm just saying generally. So, when you do that, that means we are so caught up in our own image, Rupa, Imagine you go somewhere and somebody calls you with the wrong name. How do you feel? Not you, generally. You feel very upset. Oh, that guy doesn't know my name. Nama. So this world we live by Nama and Rupa. Form and shape. Therefore, it's not possible for a normal mind, generally, to touch something that is beyond all these names and forms. So, to start your sadhana, it's a good idea to start with some name and form. Unless you have reached the stage, some people reach early, some people reach late, it doesn't matter. Some are mature, some are not yet in this field. So, but generally, it's a good idea to start with something that you can relate to. Uske baad, if your full attention is given to that which you have, which you're fond of, or your deity, or whatever, after a while the meditation becomes so deep that there is no deity, there is no you, there is only meditation. So this is a result, it's not something that you can attempt. But you can start your attempt by things which you know, which you can feel, like a deity or a name or a form. There are people who don't believe in deities, they still believe in symbols. Or they believe in sound. Like there are people who meditate only on the sound of Om, but it's still something, it's not nothing. There is no nothing actually. If by meditation you have to reach nothing, then why would you work so hard, so many years? Good hit with a crowbar on the head and you will reach nothing. So we are not aiming to be unconscious. We are aiming to be fully conscious and not limited consciousness, but something beyond. So my answer to your question, not answer, food for thought, is if you are attached to something nice, traditionally or non-traditionally, carry on with that till your mind calms down. And when the mind becomes absolutely calm, then there is nothing except that. I had this conversation with a very senior person, Swamiji. I respect him, he's a wonderful man, who believes only in duality. Madhvas, dualism, which is okay. We are all dual, mostly. Even with you and your wife, you don't think you're one, you're always two. So what about the other world, outside world? So, suppose I said that I am completely absorbed in Krishna, I love Krishna, let's say. Now when I'm totally absorbed in Krishna, I even forgotten my own existence. There's only Krishna. Then there is no two, there's only one. One may not be me, it may be Krishna, but there's only one. So, start with where you stand and proceed. I would like you to read the 12th chapter of the Gita, called Bhakti Yoga, and try to understand it.
There's one more question, and maybe that'll be the last question before we...
Really?
Hello.
Yeah. Well, I could hear him. I don't know why you took away the mic.
Guruji, namaskar.
Namaskar.
All books talk about the necessity of a guru to guide you when you are doing meditation of any kind. So, my question is, nowadays there are so many gurus who are on TV, who give mantra diksha and who give Shaktipat Yoga or whatever through CDs and TVs. Does it work? And how important is a physical guru? I mean, I attended a Vipassana course which was initiated by S.N. Goenka Guruji, and there also what we see is videos. So how important is a physical guru?
This is something very, very elaborate to discuss, but I'll give you in a few sentences to think about. Well, I think that if you're seriously interested in spiritual search, you should start even before you start looking for a teacher. The interest is not brought about by the teacher, it is in us, right? To explore. So the moment the idea of exploring the spiritual begins, you should start working on that in whichever way you know or whatever you've read and so on. I think if you're really sincere in this, and if you really need a physical presence, that will happen somehow. This is my experience. It will happen somehow. Regarding the gurus, you're right, nowadays there are more gurus than disciples, unfortunately. But what can you do? There are video formats, because people can't, there are lessons sent by post. It happens. But then that's because you don't have this, one person cannot keep in touch with many people. So there is a practical difficulty there. However, if somebody is really, really serious about spiritual practice, then I think somehow or the other you'll get hitched on to somebody personally, and then the moment, but you can, there are people who haven't had any teachers like Ramana Maharshi, but we are not Ramana Maharshis, right? So it's a good idea to have a guide. The problem is one has to be careful if you're not going to the wrong person. And how do you check that? Simple. Does the person want to give you something, or does he expect something from you?
Wow.
One. Can you take initiation without taking your checkbook with you? And how serious I am. If a guru says, sir, I want to find the Supreme Being, you go to a guru, say, forget about Supreme Being. Yeah, you'll get a BMW. How many would say, well, I want moksha, I don't want the BMW? So it also depends on the seeker. We cannot blame the teachers all the time. It to a great extent depends on the sincere teacher. The student. When the student is sincere, I think the teacher will somehow find him. And it need not be someone well known. Huh? It could be the gardener who works in your house. You don't know. Need not be somebody who's sitting here like me and having a civilized conversation. I'm writing a collection of short stories for Penguin. And the last one I wrote, the 10th one, is about a helper in the cowshed who is actually a very evolved spiritual being. This guy goes everywhere, looks around and comes back, and then he finds this man in his cowshed, in his diary, who gives him one slap and he finds everything. So, you never know. Don't look for paraphernalia. You know what I'm trying to say?
I understand.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Before we end the question answer session, Guruji, I have a question for you.
Very good.
It's the professional hazard, but a lot of people say your work becomes meditation because you're so concentratedly doing something. So whether you are cooking or you're writing or I'm talking all the time, don't think that's meditation though. Is that true?
It's true if you do it with complete attention, yes. But then you should also see what is the reason why one is doing. You know, a good lawyer is also a good liar. He's doing his work with complete attention. That's also karma yoga, I agree. But when that changes and he does some work which will take him to his true essence, then it becomes spiritual. Acha, seva. We like to help others, many of us. If you really do it with no selfish motive in mind, then that help, one pointed practice of helping, becomes karma yoga. Yeah, but it's a good thing to start with doing what you're doing with complete attention. It's a good training to go to the next step.
Thank you, Guruji. On that note, I think it's time to unveil the book that we all are gathered here for. Representing Penguin, may I please call on stage Mr. Gopal Kabda to please come and help Ranjit sir and Guruji unveil the book to everyone on meditation. Here's our moment, everyone, as we're about to unveil the book. Can we have the book, please?
Yes, indeed. Let's come. Okay. And Gopal, where is the book?
The environmentalist in me is very excited right now. There's no paper being wasted. Thank you. Let's clap and put our hands together for this momentous moment. There we have it, on meditation, finding infinite bliss and power within. Always mesmerizing reading Sri M's books. Thank you so much, Guruji, for giving us this powerful tool for our everyday bliss. Thank you. Thank you, Ranjit ji. Thank you, Gopal ji.
This was a great pleasure. And now there's going to be a book signing here. So you have a signing copy? No, I was going to...
And here's a moment to give, express our gratitude towards Ranjit ji for taking us through these questions and understanding.
Am I getting something? I'm getting it?
By getting a glimpse into the book and probably into our own mindsets. Gopal ji, please present that to Ranjit sir. Thank you. I think, Ranjit, I would, before we ask for the vote of thanks, request you to say one poem, because you do this with such precision when you're writing. But maybe this moment would be beautiful if you would end it with a poem. Any, say, can recite anything or 2 lines. Even if 2 lines, it'll be wonderful.
Well, what I'm going to do is really not read a poem by me, but I will read a translation that I made of Lal Ded, the 14th century Kashmiri mystic. I've worked on her corpus of verses for a long time. So I will read one of the Vaks in English translation. It is indeed.
Yeah.
This is what Lalla says. What the books taught me, I've practiced. What they didn't teach me, I've taught myself. I've gone into the forest and wrestled with a lion. I didn't get this far by teaching one thing and doing another.
Wow.
Lal Ded was a famous Kashmiri Sufi poet. Understand? That's why I said it's the right time to read.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ranjit, for those words. And now for the vote of thanks, may I please call upon Danish Chukar, the Secretary of the Mumbai Kendra. Please come on stage, Danish.
Thank you, Archana. Pranams to all. We wish to express our gratitude to all who are present here. Thank you, Ranjit ji, for coming here and having this insightful discussion with Sir. Thank you, the temple authorities. A very auspicious venue we got for this event. Thanks, Archana. Please. Thank you. Thank you for... she has been always a good support to us. She walked with us when we had a symbolic walk in Mumbai 2 years back. Thanks to all the well-wishers, members and volunteers of Mumbai Kendra. And sir, with deep reverence, thank you to you, our beloved Master Sri M, for visiting Mumbai and keeping Mumbai, showing the track, and hope all Mumbaikars will start their inward journey with this book on meditation. Thank you all. And may I call our chairman, Mr. Manish Desai, and our treasurer, Mr. Balakrishnan, to come and give a memento. This is, sirs, one of the initiative is My Tree. So we are giving the saplings. Archana, please. Manish Desai is presenting it to Mr. Ranjit Hoskote. And Mr. Gopalji of Penguin, please be on the stage. Balakrishnan ji, you can give it to Sri M. Archana, this is from our side to you. Manish. Balaji, Gopal. Thank you. So this was a very softer part of my job. Now little tough is that those few of those who have purchased the book today requested us whether Shriyam will sign the book. So, how many people are there? So the number is only 84 who have bought it. It must have increased little bit. So may I request those who do not have book, they can be seated. We have no issues at all. But the gangway is little, not that wide. So may I request the volunteers to ask those who want to have signature to please stand in a queue. I request 10 people to stand, 10 to 15 people. We will go row wise, otherwise there will be a chaos. So please, I will be guiding you. I think those who have the book will come on the stage, please.